Hey guys, welcome to Real Talk Houston with Carlotta B. Today we have Olympic fever. I want to welcome you guys to another segment of Real Talk Houston. And of course, I am Carlotta B. This is the show that motivates, inspires, and brings you guys to Real Talk. My special guest today is Xavier. He's a proven powerhouse on the track. He has incredible speed. He has super great discipline and dedication to the sport and anything he puts his mind to these days. We're excited to bring you these inspiring stories and engaging conversation with a remarkable individual, a public figure, a husband, and a father. So I want you guys to get ready to dive into the enthralling, exciting, and fast world of sprinting as we discuss Xavier's experiences. We'll discuss the 2024 Olympics. We will discuss track challenges because that's a whole world within itself that a lot of people don't understand unless they've been in it. And we'll also talk about what it takes to be among the fastest athletes in the world. So if you guys are ready, get set, and let's go. Welcome, Xavier.
Thank you. I think that was the best introduction anyone has ever given me. So, first off, I want to thank you for having me on. It's truly a pleasure. I admire what you're doing here, and I'm just super excited to participate.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And I'm very glad to have you on the platform with us today. Now is the perfect time because with the Olympics going on, it's a lot of buzz going on in Paris and over here in the States and all the other countries. It's an exciting time for everyone. So you're the perfect guy. And we're going to have a couple of more sprinters coming on to talk to us later. And that's for the Boss Fam. That's going to be, we have one person coming on next week and one more person after that. And we're going to talk about the Olympics a lot more. We're going to talk to a couple of more Olympians. And we're just going to enjoy this season for what it is.
Sounds
All
good.
right, Xavier. So we're going to go ahead and dive into it. First of all, I did want to say rest in power to a true legend today. We paid homage and honors actually all this week to Sheila Jackson Lee. So rest in power. We love you. Definitely a true legend and a warrior. All
Definitely.
right. Right. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk to you first just a little bit about yourself and all the experiences and challenges that you have had personally, and then we'll kind of dive into the 2024 Olympics and we'll peel away some layers and talk about that. Okay. So first, I want to ask you, what inspired you to pursue sprinting, and how did you get into that as a early on career?
Yeah, so a lot of people actually don't know because you may recognize me from my social media content, um, and it has nothing to do with athletics, but I grew up in actually a very athletic household. Both of my parents were professional athletes. They ran track. My older siblings competed in track and field as well. So it was almost natural for me to kind of pick up the sport and just kind of see where it went.
Mhm.
Growing up, it was always a pleasure to work with so many different folks from all over the country. Track is a very social sport,
Right.
so it's not uncommon to be young and to meet professionals who are actually doing the same thing that you're doing. But yeah, that's essentially how I got into it. I was almost, you could say, born into it, and it really did set the foundation for who I became as a person.
Yeah. Okay. So when you first got introduced to it, were you resistant, or you were like, "Yeah, let's do this"?
Yeah,
Do you recall?
so interesting enough, my parents didn't really force me into the sport. I remember going to track practice, and I was too young to run, but I would see all the other kids, running, and I was naturally competitive. My older siblings were competing at the time, and they never, even asked, "Hey, Xavier, do you want to get out there and run?" I just started running. I saw the other kids going, and I'm like, "Hey, I think I'm faster than them." So, I just naturally kind of fell in love with competing. And I think that most people who pick up the sport, it's not even about the act of running, it's about the competition aspect that you truly enjoy.
Yeah. There's nothing like breaking that tape at the finish line. That's a high that you can't get anywhere else. For me, because I ran track too, and I think you probably know that. But
Hmm.
I was a sprinter too, so it's just a feeling that's unfathomable unless you've had that experienced before. What's been your biggest influences or mentors? I know you mentioned your parents and you come from a track family. So, of course, probably them. But outside of them, who are your biggest influencers and mentors?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would say that the track and field community has always been very open and receptive to, questions and, you know, like I said, it's never uncommon for a young individual to come up to a more experienced person and ask for advice. So I remember growing up, we would go to certain tracks just to speak to different athletes that were older than us that had, won, you know, um, national championships, either at the collegiate level or at the professional level. And you kind of just build a circle of or network of people that are always kind of looking out for you, checking in, hey, how did you do at this meet, and so on. And on
Hmm.
top of that, I've had very, very good coaching throughout my career. Shout out to Leroy Burrell. He was my head coach at the University of Houston. He's a very good friend to the family as well. Competed alongside my dad and my mother back in the day. Also, Carl Lewis. When I was at U of H, Carl and Leroy, they were a tag team at coaching duo. And, Carl is, I always tell people, Carl is a very, he's a very knowledgeable person when it comes to track and field, but the way he goes about the sport is so unique and very refreshing in so many ways that I could see why he was so successful back when he competed, and his mentality was it was a different mentality, and it was a good one to be around because it made you better.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that I really admired about all of my mentors that kind of came across throughout my career.
Yeah. Yeah, and having the right coach is very important because a lot of times you have motivation and energy within you that you truly don't know it's there unless it's brought out by the proper coaching techniques and methods. So that's very important. I actually watched the Jesse Owens story. I know it's been out for years, but I always go back and watch track movies. Anything track related, I watch. I watch movies over and over again. I watch old reruns and previews and collaborations of all the track races from in the past and all the previous Olympics. So I'm always watching that kind of stuff. But last week I actually watched the Jesse Owens story
Mhm.
again for the fourth time. And his coach, the coach that he had he was phenomenal. He was a
Hmm.
phenomenal coach. So again, very important to have the right coaching.
Definitely.
It's very important. So we know you were a sprinter. What races did you compete in, and which ones do you think you did your best performance?
So for me, it's quite interesting. I think I grew up really wanting to run the 100 because it was the shortest race and I didn't have to worry about getting as tired.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody really liked the 400 because it was just such a beast of a race. If you run the 400, you know what I'm talking about. So, um, but I would say throughout my career, there were moments where my best race was the 100. There were moments where it was the 200, moments where it was the 400. And interesting enough, I even tried hurdles when I was in middle school. I tried everything, long jumping,
Hmm.
everything. So, but I'd say that the 100 all the way up until the 400 were probably my best events. And at different points of the year, I would, either peak at one and be working towards a peak in the other.
Right. Yeah. Same here. I did the 400. Well, you did more than which races? I know you did the 100. That's not the only race though. You did the relays too,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
So
tell
all the
me
relays.
all of your races, all
Oh
of them.
yes. So the 100, the 200 meters, the 400 meters, the 4 by 400 meters, the 4 by 100 meters, the 4 by 200 meters, any sort of how they have like the custom relays, I forget what they call them, but like you may have one person running the 800, one
Yeah.
person running the 400.
Run.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
the 60 meter, that's the indoor
Yeah.
race. Um I ran the 800 for a good time in
What?
yeah, yeah. So my mom, she was actually 800-meter runner and my dad was a 100-meter runner.
Okay.
Um so they kind of built a hybrid out of me. So I was
Uh-huh.
kind of like testing out the 800 at one point while still running the 100, and at that point my best race was the 400, so kind of like But
Uh-huh.
um, but yeah, I pretty much ran everything. And then at the higher levels, it was the 100, the 200, and the 400, and all the relays that come with that.
Yeah, I did all those too. The 100, 200, the 4x1, 4x2. Even did the 4x4, and that one was, like you said, a beast. And I did the long jump.
Oh,
So I
oh
was
wow.
running all over the track. But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. Loved it. Loved it. No, I never complained. And those
Yeah.
were the only days when track meet days are the only days I woke up early. Otherwise, it was hard to get me up. I was like, I don't want to get up today. But track meets, I think I was probably up like at 5 a.m. just crunk and excited and ready to go,
Yeah.
man. I'm telling you, that feeling for me is just it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. So can you walk us through your mindset and routine on the day of your races? If you can remember back, how did
Mhm.
you get yourself mentally and physically prepared for that race?
Yeah. So race day was always very personal to me because, as I kind of went through my career, um, I started to realize, especially as I got into the, collegiate
Mm-hmm.
aspect, that it's more about what I'm going to do and less about what my opponents are going to do. So when I would wake up, it would be about, okay, how do I make sure that by the time the race comes, I have the most amount of energy, that I'm completely locked in, that I'm ready to execute. And a lot of that would start with preparation the day before, and maybe even the day before, so
Mm-hmm.
that I'm fully, ready and capable to run my best. And I was a very, um, I guess, race day antisocial person, because I would think about the race in my head over and over, and the areas that I need to work on, and how I can, do, subtle adjustments in my start, or, do I need to conserve a bit more energy? Am I in the best shape to run this all out? All these things kind of play in your mind, and you're constantly going over, okay, what if I did this? What if I did this? And then by the time you're ready to actually, launch out those blocks, you've already envisioned hundreds of different outcomes for that race. And
Mm-hmm.
you're putting together what you believe is the best race mentally, so that you have the best outcome when, the race is over.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Were you a fast starter? Because starts are critically important unless you got a rocket in the pocket once you get, up and going. So were you a fast starter? Is that something that wasn't your best?
Yeah, so I would say my start was very good.
Okay.
My dad, he taught me how to get off the blocks very early in life. I was probably 6 years old when I first stepped into the blocks, and um, I've always had that skill,
Mm-hmm.
that explosive power.
Yeah.
Um, and it was more, at least for me, about how do I sustain that power and that speed coming out the blocks. So
Yeah.
a lot of my mental challenge throughout, at least the preparation phase, was, okay, how do I make sure that, I keep my head down in my drive phase? How do I make sure that I don't freak out and
Mm-hmm.
start racing, and focus on my own, individual
Yeah.
performance? Because ultimately that's what it is. It's not about what your opponents are going to do. It's about making
You.
sure that within your own lane,
Yeah.
you execute to your best
Yep.
ability, because the time is the only opponent at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
You're racing against the clock. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. 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 Did you ever jump the gun? I know you did probably a couple of times because I know I did. Did you ever jump the gun?
I've actually never false started. I've
What? Really?
never false started. Yeah.
That's good.
I think because, my coaches, they drilled it into us, you better not false start. The reason being is
Yeah.
because you invest so much time and
Yeah.
effort to building yourself up to be able,
Mm-hmm.
and, to have the opportunity,
Right.
right? Let's
Right.
say you've just, qualified for nationals, right?
Yep.
And now you have to make that travel all the way to Oregon from wherever you're from.
Right.
It could be 4 hour
Mm-hmm.
flight, 6 hour flight, who knows? And you're in the blocks, you false start, you waste everybody's
Yeah.
time. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yes.
Although you may learn from it at the end of the day, I was, it was never something that I had an issue with.
Yeah. That's a tough pill to swallow though when you do that. Because and don't let it be. a relay, because then you're letting down not only yourself, three other people, and that feeling is horrible. Never had that feeling before, but yeah, I did jump the gun one time, I think at a state meet, and it was in the 100. So yeah, that feeling, it hurts really bad.
Yeah.
It hurts really bad. What was your most memorable race that you can think of that really stands out for you?
So I will say, I was a part of relays that won conference, relays that had the opportunity to compete at the national level. Um, I've scored at conference individually,
Mm-hmm.
but my most memorable race, I think this is kind of interesting, is not even a race that was on record for collegiate sports at least. It
Okay.
was when I was in high school as a
Mm-hmm.
sophomore, and I'll tell you this quick story. The reason why it's so memorable is throughout my entire freshman high school year, I couldn't break 50 point in the 400
Okay.
meters. So if you were able to run 49 at that point, then you were considered really good,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
scouts were already probably looking at you.
Right.
So the season was about over with. I still didn't run 49 anything. I was still in that 50-point
Yeah.
range. So my dad was like, "Hey, you want to go run in this all comers meet at Rice University?"
Uh-huh.
And I was like, not really. I don't feel like running, but I mean, I'll do it if you want me to."
Mm-hmm.
So he convinces all of my high school teammates to come out to this meet, and we run the 100 as well as the
Yeah.
400. So he tells me before I line up for the 400, because I really didn't want to run it at all. He was like, "Look, if you run 49, if you break 50 point, I'll give you $100." And at that point, I ain't had no money, so I'm like, "Really? Like, okay, yeah, I'm
Rivalry.
down. Yeah, I want to run it now." So, and if you don't know, all comers meet is essentially where all can come and compete.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be as young as 10 years old, or as old as 90 years old, and they group you by however your times are for that particular event. So for me,
Okay.
I would tell them that, my time is like 49, even though I hadn't ran 49. I want to be with a little bit of a faster group so that, they can push me.
Right.
So they put me in the fastest group. And in the fastest group, I was running up against one guy from LSU who in that race ended up running like 45. There was another guy who I don't even know what college he was at, but he ran a 46 open. And there were some other folks too. But long story
Mm-hmm.
short, the gun goes off, and I'm literally like chasing the guy from LSU the entire
Okay.
race. And imagine, he's kind of like gapping me because I'm younger and, slower and weaker, all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But he drug me around the track to the point where I ran a 48. And I completely skipped 49, ran 48. So when they showed the
Mm-hmm.
times, they're like, "Oh, looks like you ran 48.9." So literally,
See.
right there at 48. And I just couldn't believe it. My dad was like so excited because he knows that I wanted to run, sub 50
Is
point,
that
and that was literally the last opportunity.
wow? And you did even better than the 49. You were just trying to at least get a 49 and nothing that was 50, and over, but you actually got a 48
Right.
point
So,
something. Yeah.
so that was
Wow.
just a very memorable race for me because, you know, the fulfillment that I got from it,
Yeah.
it was so innocent,
Yeah.
and, I look back and I really just appreciate those moments where I had a
Yeah.
goal and I achieved it.
You achieved it even better than you thought you would.
Mhm.
Amazing. Wow. How did you handle the pressure of the competition or the pressure of racing against someone that may be a rival? Did you guys have any have you had any rivals? Like, for example, when I was running, my rival was at in Texarkana. We went
Mhm.
back and forth between number one and number two in our whole region. So she was my rival,
Yeah.
right? But we liked each other though. We were friends, but we were always rivals against each other. Do you have anyone that kind of falls into that category that really challenges you during those meets that were important?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I think throughout my career, I definitely had multiple rivals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think what's interesting is, um, Cameron Burrell.
Mm-hmm.
We had a similar type of upbringing in a sense where both of his parents were Olympic athletes, at the top of their game for their
Yeah.
era, just like my parents
Uh-huh.
were. And rest in peace to Cameron. You know, he was a brother to me and a great guy. You know, I think about him all the time. But just like how you mentioned with your rival, y'all were great friends. Cam and I, we were always really close, at least as we gotten older and we
Hmm.
became teammates,
Yeah.
to the point where we considered almost everyone on the team brothers. You know, it
Yeah.
was a brotherhood. So I think the fact that we had such a similar upbringing and the
Hmm.
fact that, you know, Cam was, he had that mentality, that Kobe mindset mentality, literally, where if you hear him speak in an interview, you would think that he's the most humble person ever, right? And when you actually know who he is and he has that killer mindset at practice and how he's going about his work, you just really sit back in awe and appreciate, you know, how serious he takes it,
Yeah.
how personal he takes it.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why he was so successful was, you know, a lot because of that. And for me personally, um, I knew that I had that mindset, but I wasn't always able to put it together like he was.
Hmm.
And you know, naturally, we kind of went separate ways from a, you know, from a goal perspective, right?
Yeah.
My goal became more so, okay, after my career is over with, how do I use the knowledge and this foundation that has been built up from track and field into other aspects of, you know, where I find interest. And his was, okay, I'm going pro now. How do I win the Olympics?
Hmm.
And you know, regardless of, you know, which path you choose, I think track and field is one of the best sports for setting up people for success long term
Yeah.
because of, you know, the fact that you need that discipline. It's always a war within yourself to compete at the very highest level, and any little mistake, any little injury that you could have prevented is, you
Hmm.
know, potentially costing you of that opportunity to reach your goal.
That's true. That's true. I'm happy that they are opening the box now to where sprinters and tracksters can earn a lot more
Oh
money
yeah.
too. So now they, they're doing all these endorsements, and I'm so happy for these kids. A lot of them are just kids, and they have these endorsements, and they're really happy, and they're amazing at their sport. Um, and I think that really balances out. It's a really good work-life balance, because doing all that working out is hard.
Oh yeah.
It's not easy. You have to be disciplined, 100% committed, focused, driven. So it's really exciting that they're also getting to reap those rewards financially as well. I love that. Speaking of, so let's go ahead and dive into the 2024 Olympics going on in Paris. First, I want to give a big shout out to Houston's own Simone Biles. What? Yes. We love you, Simone. And the entire USA gymnastics team. Wonderful job. Wonderful job. Um, USA is doing good. I think the swim team also, they're doing well. We didn't have anyone in the surfing competition, I don't think, but I think so far the USA is doing good. I'm looking forward to, of course, the sprints. All the
Hmm.
sprints are coming up, so I got to go back and look at the schedule. But I think they're gonna start the sprinting. I think, is it Friday, tomorrow?
I
Do
think
you know
so.
what the
Yeah.
schedule is?
Yeah.
Over the
I
weekend,
believe so.
definitely for sure that's going to be popping off. So I'm super excited about that. We got Noah Lyles that we're going to be looking out for, Sha'Carri Richardson. It's so many. Gabby Thomas, Shelly Ann Frazier, Sharika. It's so many that I'm really looking forward to seeing. What are your thoughts on Simone Biles, especially since she's here from the Houston area? Let's talk about her first. Give me your thoughts on her, and then give me your assessments and kind of how you feel like the sprinters are going to land. Some of the ones that I mentioned as far as the single races and also the relays for the men and for the women.
Okay. Well, starting out with Simone Biles, um, I'm just amazed. You know,
Right?
truly amazed. You know, for how long she's been exceptionally great is, it's amazing. You
Right.
know, it's, I don't even really have words for it.
I
how
know.
great she is.
What can you
It's
say?
it's
She's
just
the greatest.
spectacular.
She's the GOAT.
Spectacular. And you know, I just want to watch. I just want to continue to watch. And the sad thing is, you know, all of our favorite athletes will eventually retire, but
Yeah.
knowing that, I always try to just live in the moment and
Yes.
truly appreciate, give the flowers. She deserves all of them. Just
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
So that's Simone.
Yes.
You know, there's so many words that
We
don't
can
even
say so
amount.
much.
Oh my goodness, yes. Um, as far as these athletes in today's Olympics, I really appreciate how competitive all of these events at least appear to be on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now that we're out of the Usain Bolt
Mm-hmm.
era, I think during that era, a lot of people were really just watching to see, okay, how bad was Bolt going to beat the field? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And at this point today, it's more about what what's next. You know, who's the next, icon that is the symbol for the
Mm-hmm.
fastest man in the world or the fastest woman in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because Usain Bolt, like superseded the sport.
He
And
did.
he became that icon that I believe most sprinters want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this year is an opportunity for somebody. And like I said, the beauty of it is it's so competitive that it's hard to call, who could win,
Exactly.
right? So I'm excited for that. I think that the United States, we have a really, really good opportunity to get some gold medals,
Mm-hmm.
and get medals in general.
Mm-hmm.
For the women, I'm super excited to see Sha'Carri because in prior years she's
Yeah.
faced a lot of criticism, you know, and I just hope that they give her roses,
Yeah.
because she deserves them already. She's been winning championships and titles all the way up to this point.
Yeah.
Um, but negativity is always going to sell, and
Correct.
unfortunately, she's been on the negative end of the stick. I feel more often in the public eye than when she does well. So I want to see her do really well. I hope that she wins it. I've always loved Shelly Ann, Sharika
Mm-hmm.
Jackson. I love the Jamaicans. They always come out. They
They
come out, they
do.
show out. They're
Yes.
fast, you know, and I just respect. I love the competition.
Yeah.
But I am biased to the USA. I want to see
Of
them come take it home. For
course.
the relays, just get the stick around.
Mm-hmm. Stay
Don't
in your
Yeah,
zones. Yeah.
exactly. Let's not get disqualified. Let's get the stick around, and I think that we'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. I get chills just thinking about the relays. I get chills. I don't. Am I the only one that? Well, you're a guy, but but it still can happen to you. But every time I'm watching the relays, I tear up. I just can't help myself. Even if I'm physically at a track meet, not just watching it on TV, but I get chills and I just get teary eyed. That's how emotional I am about the actual sport. But do you still enjoy it to that degree these days? I know, is it just me? Do you still enjoy it that much? I mean, not that not the tears, but do you still enjoy the sport that much? Just watching it or being at a physical track meet?
Yeah, to be honest, once my career ended, I took a decent amount of time away from the sport just so I can focus on other things. And for someone who's always competed in track and field, like any sport, it's a very odd feeling to be not in the sport because that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of all you've known for so many years. But what I can say is when I did return back, like my nephew, he's competing at the University of Houston now, but I would go to some of his high
Yeah.
school meets. The feeling was it was a very personal
Mm-hmm.
feeling. Like you know how much these kids, these coaches put into
Right.
it, and when you see a young lady or a young man drop the stick, like anything, like
It
I totally can
hurts.
relate to what you're talking about, because you just know how much work and effort goes into it. And everybody can't be successful.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's just but I would say at the professional level, I'm more of a
Yeah.
fan and kind of just ooh,
Right.
fast times,
Right.
but when I start to see the kids and the college athletes, who are trying to work to become that professional, I do feel a bit more emotionally invested,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
does move me when I watch them compete.
Yeah. So, what do you think sets apart the ones that do make it to the Olympics? What do you think set apart the training among the Olympians? Is it, of course it's speed, it's power, it's, endurance, it's stamina, it's technique, but what sets them apart as far as their training techniques or their training? Is it more so the coach? Do you think the coach plays more of a role in their preparation and training that sets them apart, or is it a combination of their talent and skill and the coach? What's more important?
I think that the athlete coach relationship, I think that that dynamic is super critical. I know so
Mhm.
many athletes, including myself, where you find yourself in a good situation, and the training is conducive to the type of athlete that you are, the type of physique that you have.
Mhm.
It goes with your strengths, and helps mitigate your weaknesses. um, you have to have that strong dynamic between the coach and the athlete. And I think that the individuals who are able to figure out what works for them
Mhm.
and truly, drill into that process, and and inevitably it turns into a science. When you can understand your body so well that okay, if I do XYZ, I'm going to have this outcome. There's no guessing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think that for the professionals, they figure it
Yeah.
out. They know what works, they know what doesn't work. They've had so many years of time to kind of hone in that and become that expert, that they know how to reach their ceiling.
Yeah.
And I feel like for the people who don't necessarily get there, it could be for several reasons, but usually I've seen that people um, either don't kind of stick to a plan that's worked for them, historically. They think that, oh, well, there's this coach over here that's training all these people, and they seem to be doing well. Maybe I should
Mhm.
stop training with the current coach that I have, and, you know, go try something new. And the truth is, the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Mhm.
And depending on when you decide to do that in your career, it could be very detrimental and hard
Yeah.
to actually bounce back from. So I think what really sets them apart is understanding that your coach needs to work with you, and not necessarily, you know, just group you in with a bunch of other athletes and
Yeah.
say this is what you need to be doing because this
Right.
this regiment works because it worked for so
Right.
and so, but it may
Right.
not work for you.
Exactly. It needs to be customized and groomed for that one athlete, like you
Yeah.
said. And I actually was watching a documentary not too long ago, and they were talking about one athlete. She had um, one of the top athletes, and I don't really want to say her name, but uh, she had this one coach for years, and she got married, and the husband said, "Oh, I can coach you. I got this. I can do what your coach does. Fire him, and I'm your guy. I'm your." So she did, and the next very important race that came up, I don't know if it was a 2020. I can't remember what the race was, but she did horrible, and she cried. And they showed all of that in the documentary. But like you said, the grass is not always greener. Just because someone love you and want the best for you may not be the best person for you when it comes to something this important. But yeah, she switched coaches, and yeah, it was detrimental to her at that point. So you're right. Being paired up with the right coach, that coach athlete relationship, critically important. Critically
Definitely.
important. How do you think the performances at the 2024 Olympics will influence the next generation of sprinters coming up?
That's a good question, because I feel like you kind of touched on it earlier. I feel like there's more opportunity to make a career out of sprinting, out of track and
Mm-hmm.
field in general. Nowadays, these college kids are able to get endorsements and get paid while in college, which wasn't available to me back then. And I don't think I was fast enough at the time to get some of those endorsements. Um, But I will say that the Olympics is always a good platform to market the sport.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really up to the community, and by the community, the track and field community,
Mm-hmm.
it's up to the people who are the the faces of the sport to help bring in new people.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of a burden that people don't really talk about much,
Yeah.
because as an athlete, you always envision yourself being at the top. But when you
Right.
get to the top, it comes with greater responsibility. You may have to be a bit more theatrical to, appease and to
Mm-hmm.
entertain, because ultimately all sports is entertainment, right?
Yes,
People want to see something great. They want to be a part of something great, right? So
that's
that's why we
right.
compete. So I would say that we have a very good opportunity right now to put track and field on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Track and field is not a very popular sport in the United States. It's far more popular in, other countries.
Mm-hmm.
But, during the Olympics is when we get our time to shine. And I think that we got to shine as bright as we can, because, um, it's here for us, you know?
I totally agree. And I think the USA, yeah, I think we're going to continue to do really great things in the 2024 Olympics. They're off to a really good start, and it's only going to get better. I can't wait for those races to come, the sprints and the relays. I cannot wait. I just hope I get some sleep. I might just be sitting straight up in my bed waiting, watching the clock. Is it Saturday yet? That's how bad it is. I probably won't be able to sleep. I'm that stoked about it. That stoked. Do you think I hate even saying the word, I hate it so much, COVID. How do you think COVID impacted the previous Olympics? Because
Oh, that's a good question.
it's kind of, that's when everything was getting really, really bad. And yeah,
That's a
kind
good
of messed up the
question.
karma.
Right. Um, I would say that it threw a wrench in a lot of things.
It
Like,
did.
I mean, we could look at it at a high level and just, but when you even peel the onion, right? Just think about all the athletes who were impacted,
Mm-hmm.
who probably could have given a better effort, who could have been a better version of themselves,
Yeah.
you know, and gave a better performance. And I'm not trying to make excuses for anybody, but as an athlete, when you're accustomed to a particular regiment
Mm-hmm.
and it completely changes, it can really throw
Yeah.
you off, like to the point where you are no longer the same competitor. On top of all the emotional, strain that came with COVID.
Yes.
And I don't think athletes really, you know, they weren't able to express that piece of it, because they're a professional. They have to still go in and take care of business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think we have the luxury as viewers to accept the entertainment for what it was, right? They're out there competing. At least we have something to watch while we're while we're in lockdown,
Right.
right? But
Right.
I could only imagine, and in just talking with some of the athletes that were, trying to make the Olympic team and putting forth all that effort,
Mm-hmm.
and everything being so different than what they had, in previous years with training.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy. I'm just super excited,
Yeah.
to your point, that today so many people who aren't even track and field athletes are like, oh, I can't wait to see the sprints. I can't wait for this.
Exactly.
So,
Because
it's just a breath of fresh air.
there's so much hype and buzz about it. I mean, every time you turn around, you're seeing Shakari on all of her endorsement commercials. It's all over social media. It's everywhere. So I think this year there's so much talent, new talent, so many changes has come about for the better for a lot of these athletes. And like you said, they're so the intrigue is there. It's not like you saying, and you're like, oh well, how many meters or how many feet will the second person be behind
Right.
Usain Bolt? It's not that now, right?
Yep.
It's how many milliseconds is it going to be between Shakari and Sharika, or it's that those races. I mean, a lot of them need to be replayed because it's like, okay, who came in second? It's that close. So the intensity is there. So it's just like on the edge of your seats type of race. It's So it's really exciting. Final question. What words of advice would you give to any young athletes that want to run track? Maybe they are afraid. A lot of kids are fast and don't know it,
Mhm.
right? So that's something that they're going to have to find out, I guess, or it to be brought out in them. But the ones that know they want to run track, and they have dreams and aspirations of taking it to those top levels and going to the Olympics one day, what is your advice to them?
Yeah, I would say my advice is believe in yourself. I think that as I become an adult, I've been so blessed to have a support system that always gave me that assurance that I can do something.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I meet certain kids where I don't know if they have a support system that reminds them that they can do
Right.
anything, that they can be anything. And because of that, I don't know if they truly believe that they can achieve.
Yeah.
So whenever I talk with any young person, I just remind them that everybody who's ever been great had to start from somewhere.
Hmm.
And dreams ultimately can become goals, and you can achieve your goal just like how you can, manifest a dream and it come true. But you have to put the work in. You have to put the work in. You have to believe in yourself
Yeah.
and know that there's no such thing as failure when the outcome is always going to be positive. And what I mean by that is, let's say you put in the work and for whatever reason, you don't become an Olympian.
Hmm.
We can use myself as an example. I didn't become an Olympian. I would still say that, track and field really did become the influence that made me who I was. It made me work extremely hard. It made me feel like other people didn't have the same level of work ethic because
Yeah.
I was so used to working hard
Right.
that when I was taking a break, I feel like I'm working as hard as, the next person. Like they're working hard and I'm kind of relaxing, but I'm just so used to that grind.
Right.
And, to this point today, having over 2.4 million followers across
Yeah.
platforms doing something completely separate
Yeah.
from track and field, I can
Yeah.
still look back and appreciate that track and field made me who I was,
Yes.
you know, and ultimately the kids nowadays, they have access, they have resource, they have the internet. Like I said, track and field is a very social sport. You
Hmm.
can literally talk to professionals, to collegiate athletes when you come to some of these high school meets, when you come to some of these summer track meets.
Hmm.
Be social,
Right.
network, follow people on social media.
Yep.
Say, hey, I'm looking to, better my 100 time. Do you have any tips?
Yeah.
We're all here to
Yep.
help, like genuinely.
Yep. Yep. That's great. I love that. Um, do you have any other final words? Because we're kind of at the end of our time, but I want to make sure that we get everything out there that's really really needed. We had some really good conversation about the Olympics. I really like that. I'm going to ask you two hard questions, maybe three.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you three final questions. I don't want to put you on the spot, but girls 100. Who you have at number one?
Shakari. I'm going with Shakari for sure.
Okay. Men uh 100. Who you have?
I got Noah.
I'm with you on both of those. Both of those. Oh my gosh. Yep. Okay. I think that's one more. Third question. I had a lot of people in my DMs, my direct, and they didn't put it on the public comments, but they said, well, it was just three people. They said they need to legalize cannabis for tracksters because it's not a performance enhancing drug. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's an interesting one. I think that um, anything that someone could take to help with recovery that isn't going to inevitably make them stronger or give an advantage,
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe we should explore because ultimately we want to see the best races. We want to see the fastest athletes
Yeah.
compete. And in
Yeah.
order to be able to compete at that high level, you got to be able to, maintain your body. I
Right.
was never the person to, indulge in any, supplement
Yep.
or,
Hmm.
marijuana at
Yeah.
all. But based on what I've heard and some of the science about, okay, it can relax you, it can help, with sleeping,
Yeah.
there's certain benefits about it. Now, obviously, anything that you put in your body where you're doing it too much can be negative, right? That's anything at
Exactly.
all.
True.
Sugar, Popeye's chicken, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think with moderation, if there is no competitive advantage,
Yeah.
like a PED or steroid, anything like
Yeah.
that, um, I mean, I'm for it. I mean, I want to see the best competition,
Right.
right? And I want to
Right.
see the most
Right.
fair competition. And
Right.
I think
Without
whatever,
cheating. Yeah.
exactly, wherever we can do to land there and have our athletes compete and on a platform that allows the masses to see, allows the sport to grow,
Right.
then why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, Carrie said she's not back, she's better. So everybody kept saying, "Oh, you back? Oh, you back?" She said, "No, I'm not back. I'm better."
Yeah.
So go Shakari, go USA. We're rooting for you guys, and we're gonna see what happens over the next few days at the USA Olympics with the USA team at the 2024 Olympics,
Yep.
right? So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. I want everyone to go out and follow Xavier. You want to give them your, I know it's in my post, but give them your Instagram page.
Sure. So at It's Visuals by X on Instagram, my wife and I, we do content, comedic skits, different, we do a variety, family content as well. So if you're interested in that, you can follow us on TikTok at XNA. If you know me at all, then it's probably interesting that, or you probably feel it's interesting that I'm doing, this podcast about track and field, because you may have not even known that, that was my upbringing. So, I'm just excited to, like I said, to
Yeah,
participate. And
yeah.
Carlotta B, like I said, thank you so much for having me. And I really, really admire the work that you're doing. And anytime that you need somebody on, if I'm that guy, I'll never turn
I
you down.
know who to call. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Boss Fam, for joining us. Like, share, go follow Xavier, follow my Instagram page, Real Talk Houston. My YouTube channel is Real Talk Houston with Carlotta B. This will be airing on all live streaming platforms as well. So, again, thank you guys so very much. This is Carlotta B with Real Talk Houston, and thank you, Xavier, for joining us tonight.